Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 RBC Canadian Data Dive Show. We have a lot to get into. I have found some more information on the course. We'll be reviewing last night and what we covered, and then be digging into everything that we didn't cover last night. And there is some more information in Fantasy National. So let's get right into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from the aforementioned Fantasy National. It is the best tool out there. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler, a much better DFS player. Go check them out. It is well worth your investment. In the descriptions to the videos, there are links to my social media. This is where I place my betting cards for the golf content I create, as well as some research that I do throughout the week for the golf and baseball content I put out. Not a lot of research to be done this week with a new course, so you don't know how many or how well the players are going to adjust to it, and we're going to cover anything research related tonight and what we covered last night. So normally I'll post some interesting research. I definitely will for the US Open next week around winners and whatnot. So if you want to be a part of that research or see some of the research that I do, give me a follow at the links in the descriptions. And then finally, we're live, chat's open, want to hear from you all. Have you all checked the price boards out? Is there any wagers that you have on your mind? Are you wanting to see any person in particular if you're weighing a bet here and there? Have you looked at the price boards for DFS? Who are you leaning towards, pivots and fades and whatnot? So we're here for all that and any other questions you have. So let's dig into the data for the 2022 RBC Canadian. And we start with the tournament fact sheet that came out today. So this is part of the information that I have been able to gather. Let me get everything situated. My chair's stuck under the desk. Let's see. Camera okay? Yeah. So we are at St. George's Golf and Country Club in Toronto, Ontario. It is a lot shorter course than even I thought it was. Pro Visualizer had it at about 7,100. This is just over 7,000 according to the GCSAA. Just over 7,000. So a very, very short course. Very unique. Pro Visualizer had it as a par 71. They are playing it as a par 70 this week. So a very, very odd par 34, 36 setup. But you have a stimp meter of 12. As I assumed, and it's never safe to assume, but as I thought, we are on bent grass, but you have Kentucky bluegrass and a little bit of fescue in the rough. And the rough is going to be very, very, very tall, is what I have read. But we are on bent greens, small greens, 4,000 square feet in average size. That is some of the smallest that I have seen. It's not quite as small as Pebble Beach. I believe the Heritage or Harbor Town is a little smaller than 4,000, but these are some of the smallest greens tour players will see during a season. So very, very small greens. The stimp at 12, the last time they played here, and that reminds me that last night I kept saying that the course had never been played. In Fantasy National, they don't have the stats for it, but the 2010 Canadian Open was here at St. George's. Still don't have a lot of data for it. I have brought up that leaderboard, but nothing definitive as far as statistical analysis we can do, since Fantasy National only goes back to 2012. But yeah, it's just an odd course. Very small greens, average size of 4,000 square feet, bent. What I was trying to get to, and I just remembered, the last time this was played at St. George's, the stimp was about 10.5, just due to the slopiness, the undulation of the greens. They are really speeding it up this week in preparation for the US Open. With this being the week before the US Open, they wanted to try and set the course as similarly as possible, or at least that is what I have gleaned. So very, very fast greens, very penal rough. I mentioned that there were about 1 or 2 holes with water in play. The GCSAA says 3, but it all revolves around this one creek that meanders, I think, all through the back 9. A lot of renovations have happened. This is originally a Stanley Thompson design, but Tom Doak and Ian Andrew came in 2014, and some of the renovations that they've done, they've redone a lot of the bunkers. They redid a couple of fairways. They redid the entire green complexes. So it's going to be quite different than it was in 2010. And the only reason I know that is from pundits online. In 2010, I was still playing baseball, not key to professional golf and stats and all that stuff. So I'm only reading that from others in the industry that this is supposed to play a lot different than it was in 2010. As you can see here, all 18 greens were reconstructed. Bunkers were rebuilt in 2019. So yeah, that is what we have from a GCSAA informational view. Very, very small greens, short course, probably going to be pretty fast bent greens. Yeah, that's what we got. So let's go ahead and move over to Fantasy National. And I went ahead and set this at the usual calendar year start 1/1/22. And now that we know that we're on bent greens, let's go ahead and filter for bent. And I think it's going to be safe to say that we're going to be on fast. But seeing that there are a few rounds here, let's see, how many players actually don't have stats or data? Okay, this will be fine. We might expand it out a little bit, but just to see short term, just very recent form putting. And I'm going to check and see if fast adds or just subtracts a lot of these rounds. I highly doubt it does. Yeah, so there were 2 rounds from somebody that were removed. Let's see, Aaron Rye. Wonder which ones were the. Looks like it would be the Wells. It'd have to be the Wells Fargo that were average speed greens that week. Leaderboard. No, those were fast. Interesting. I'm not sure which ones they are. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the putting statistics on bent greens. Again, no filter, just bent green performance, essentially in the past couple of months, but dating back to the beginning of 2022. Your top putters on bent surfaces are Brendan Todd, Sebastian Munoz, Peter Malnati, Martin Traynor, Ben Coles, Matthias Schwab, David Skins, Lee Hodges, Jim Knos, and Bill Haas. And Callum Tarrant. Haas and Tarrant tied for 10th. All right, Sam Burns lurking here at 12th. David Lingmerth here at 14th. His propensity for the Memorial and their fast and lightning bent greens. Okay, so let's expand this out a little bit and get a more full picture of who performs well on bent. So that was the recent form dating back to January 1st, 2022. Now we go to July 1st of 2021. Your top bent green putters since July 1st of 2021. Those are Rory, Mackenzie Hughes, Martin Traynor, Pat Perez, Brant Snedeker, Keith Mitchell, Hank Lebiota, Jim Knos, Sam Burns, and Tony Finau. And you'll notice that I skipped Taylor Pendrith. I got to grab this note here. There have been 5 field changes this week. So the 5 players that have withdrawn are Taylor Pendrith, DJ Trahan, Luke List, Kevin Chappell, and Fabian Gomez. They've been replaced in the field by Kevin Stadler, John Merrick, Brian Davis, Richard S. Johnson, and Matt Every. So hopefully I will have this. I'll have this note here. There's no hopefully. I have this note here, so in case we come across somebody that has withdrawn, I'll make sure to highlight it. But looking here at the short form or recent form and long term, Martin Traynor was top 10 in both. Pat Perez is fourth in long term. He's very close to the top 10 recently. I think he was in the top 15. I just caught him at the corner of my eye. Let's see, Jim Canoes was in both. Sam Burns was 12th recent, 10th long term. Finau's been up there in both. Lingmerth has been high up there in both as well. So good stuff there. We are going to remove the bent green filters here, and let's bring this in. Actually, you know what? Let's check and see how many short course rounds there are in the calendar year, dating back to July 1st. Actually, not as many as I thought. So we looked at the short or recent form on short courses last night in the initial research show. Let's take a more full view here, a bigger picture view of who plays well on short courses. So those players are Shane Lowry, Mackenzie Hughes, Corey Connors, Keith Mitchell, Justin Thomas, Cameron Smith, Nick Taylor, Matt Fitzpatrick, JJ Spawn, Adams Vincent, Sebastian Munoz, Harold Varner III, and Tony Finau. So 4 players tied for 10th. So some overlap here with putting and short course form. You got Finau. Let's see. Cam Smith was up there in the putting. He was not top 10 in any of them, but was up there. Mackenzie Hughes, more around the green focus. Shane Lowry just playing great lately and really dominating on short courses. Harold Varner has been popping up quite a bit too this week, or at least this week so far. So good stuff there. The last thing I want to check, reading through some of the analysts and how they are looking at St. George's, they think it's going to play fairly tough. I don't see it, especially with the 2 par 5s being so short. Now, the 1 par 5 on the front is playing as a par 4, so that's going to make it a bit more difficult. But I still don't see professionals having a difficult time with this course. And luckily, with the added research that I've done today, Fantasy National actually does have the scorecard from St. George's when it was played in 2010. So this could be a bit old in data, but what we have here, at least statistically, is a pretty difficult course. So I always like to look at 9th and 10th most difficult. If the course plays to right around average, somewhere in here the 9th and 10th would be par. Both of them are slightly over par. In fact, you have to come to the 12th most difficult hole to be 7/100ths under par, because the 11th is 3/10ths over. So somewhere in between 11 and 12 is par for the course. Now, again, I don't see how this course is going to play difficult. I just don't. You can see here 2 very, very good eagle opportunities on both par 5s. And then a lot of birdies here. Now, as I expected, the end of the round, the closing holes are the most difficult here at St. George's, and I got that feel last night going through Pro Visualizer. In fact, 18 is supposedly the hardest. Then you have the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th, all within. So 4 of the 5 toughest holes are in the last 5 holes. So I'm having a struggle believing that this is going to be difficult. I don't think it's going to be nearly as easy as I believed last night, but I still don't see difficult. But anyway, a par 34 on the front. You actually do have 3 par 3s and a par 5, and then 2 par 5s and 2 par 3s on the back. So the par 5 15th, the one that I thought might play as a 3-shot hole, appears to play as a true 3-shot hole due to the narrowness, I'm assuming, of the approach to the green. But I'm still very, very convinced that these par 5s are going to be attackable. You see a 6% eagle rate. That might be the highest on tour. I don't remember seeing one 6. Actually, I take that back. There might have been a 6.5 early on in the year, but I mean 6% is ungodly. I mean, you can see here it plays to more than a half a shot under par. If you're getting par on this hole, you're losing a lot of shots to the field. But anyway, there's a look at the scorecard. So there's not a lot of data here. Fantasy National didn't collect it and whatnot. But the approach shot distribution from 2010, it appears that 175 to 200 was the majority of the approach shots. And that is what Pro Visualizer had us believe last night. Now, I thought there would have been more 150 to 175 just due to the way Pro Visualizer lays out their course and the conservative nature that Pro Visualizer is. But at least the number of approach shots, the majority here at this course come from 175 to 200 and then 200 plus, both at 23%. But I would think we would want to focus on 175 to 200 since it is so much more in relation to the average PGA Tour course. The cut line in 2010 was even par. I think it's going to be under par. Again, I just see this being easier than what people think. Birdies about 19% of the time, bogeys 15.5% or so of the time, but you do have a little bit of doubles here. The course can jump up and get you, but the eagles are they're existent essentially because of the two par fives from up here, 4% and a 6% eagle rate. The eagles are I keep scrolling. The 6% and 4% par fives for eagles allow enough eagles that I think there's going to be more birdies and eagles than bogeys and doubles. That's just the way I'm seeing it. Accuracy here was a lot higher than the average tour event in 2010. The distance was also higher in 2010. Now, my assumption is going to be that they have really increased the penal nature of the rough, which means the distance is going to come down this year at the Canadian Open at St. George's. That would be my guess. So I don't know how much driving distance is going to matter. I'm definitely going to be looking at greens since they are so very small. You're going to want to look at greens in regulation. Therefore, I don't know how much proximity, or at least total proximity, is going to take into effect. And you can see that by this chart here. Greens in regulation, proximity to the hole, just over 25 feet, close to 26, whereas the average tour event is almost 29. So if players are finding the greens in regulation, they're generally closer to the hole, which is going to emphasize putting, and it is going to emphasize just finding the green in general. We don't have the scrambling percentage from 2010. We don't have the green regulation percentage from 2010. Now, the average 3 putts were quite a lot, even in 2010 when the greens were slow. So that is also something we're probably going to want to look at, is 3-putt avoidance. Lag putting is a skill. Some people have it, some people don't. So we might want to look at that as well. So there is a look at the course breakdown in Fantasy National on St. George's Golf and Country Club. I'm glad I noticed that during my research today. At least can share that with you all. So we come back to Fantasy National's homepage here. I am starting to have a little bit of doubt of whether I should use the easy filter, but I'm definitely not going to use difficult. I just don't see this playing difficult at all. So instead, we're really going to focus on the short course metrics, and we looked at short course strokes gained total. But before we do anything more on the kind of the umbrella stat page or the main stat page, let's just take a look at strokes gained approach, as I believe it is the best statistic for long-term success, most indicative of long-term success. And if the course is indeed going to play hard like the other analysts think it will, then you're going to have to be very good with your irons. And with the greens being so small, you're going to have to be good with your irons. So your top strokes gained approach players since the start of this calendar year, 1-1-22 forward. Those players are Scotty Scheffler, Shane Lowry, Justin Thomas, Cam Smith, C.T. Pan, Luke Donald, Nick Taylor, Rory, Tony Finau, and Johnny Vegas. Luke List, again, here at 11th, he has withdrawn. So Luke List is not 11th this week as he is not in the field. But what I want to do next is take a look at approaches, or strokes gained approach on short courses. And we're going to keep this at 1-1-22. So if you want to see the strokes gained total from 1-1-22, it's in the initial research show last night. But strokes gained approach on short courses since the start of this calendar year, 1-1-22 forward. Those players are Shane Lowry, Adams Vinson, Nick Taylor, Johnny Vegas, Harold Varner III, Justin Lauer, Adam Hadwin, Corey Connors, C.T. Pan, and Wyndham Clark. I almost said Luke List. So quite a bit of overlap here. Shane Lowry, top 5 in both, number 1 in strokes gained approach when it's short. Svensson's been up there in both. Johnny Vegas was up there in both. Connors, C.T. Pan, I believe, was up there as well in regular irons, and now here in strokes gained approach, or strokes gained approach when it's short. Yeah, so I just don't see how much off the tee is going to play. If it does, it's going to be fairways, and that's on a different tab. So on this page, on this tab in Fantasy National, I think it's going to be all putting and all strokes gained approach. So let's move to the next tab here in Fantasy National. We're going to go to birdies and bogeys. And last night I sat here and went through a couple of things. I looked at eagles. I looked at birdies are better. If indeed this is going to play more difficult than I originally thought last night, then opportunities gained is going to be the statistic we want to look at. With the two eagle opportunities that those two par 5s present, I still don't think it's wrong to take a look at eagles gained. So your top players at gaining eagles since the start of the calendar year, 1-1-22 forward. Those players are Stefan Jaeger, David Lipsky, Mark Hubbard, Callum Tarrant, Wyndham Clark, Chris Kirk, Lee Hodges, Scott Gostowski, Cameron Percy, and Nick Hardy. Again, Luke List having withdrawn. So good stuff there. Again, no filter. But let's go ahead and look at opportunities gained and hedge a little bit to make sure that in case this course does play more difficult than I thought it was going to last night, let's just take a look at opportunities gained, and then we'll look at narrowing this in at opportunities on short courses. But no filters, just straight up your top opportunities gained players since the start of this calendar year. Justin Thomas, Rory, Chris Kirk, Cameron Smith, Tony Finau, Harold Varner III, Austin Smotherman, Aaron Rai, Joseph Bramlett, and Satoshi Kodaira. So for the players that are top 10 in all opportunities, birdies are better, and eagles. So you've got Chris Kirk, 3rd in opportunities, 6th in birdies are better, 7th in eagles. He's the only one that's top 10 in all 3. Now you've got, let's see, I'll give an honorable mention here to Scotty Scheffler, 12th in opportunities, 1st in birdies are better, and 19th in eagles gained. Let's see, someone else here, perhaps Callum Tarrant, 13th in opportunities, 23rd in birdies are better, but 4th in eagles. So there's a good look at, with no filters, just the players who have been giving themselves the best opportunities, most eagles and whatnot. So now let's really hone this in. Let's look at short course performance in regards to opportunities, eagles, birdies, and whatnot. So your top opportunities gained players on short courses. Those are Shane Lowry, Callum Tarrant, Adams Vinson, Nick Taylor, John Huh, Matt Wallace, Corey Connors, Joseph Bramlett, Nate Lashley, and Austin Smotherman. And if you want to go across the line here, Let's see. Shane Lowry is first in opportunities, 7th in birdies or better when it's short. He just doesn't get a whole lot of eagles. You got Adams Vinson, 3rd in opportunities, 1st in birdies or better, 23rd in eagles. Let's see. You've got Matt Wallace, 5th, 26th, and 11th. Those are really the only 3 that stand out in all 3. For example, like John Huh, 5th in opportunities, 21st in birdies, but no eagles at all. Same with Joseph Bramlett, 8th, 10th, and 87th. Let's look at eagles on short courses. See who can really take advantage of those 2 par 5s in general. So your top eagles gained players on short courses since the start of this calendar year. Those players are Patrick Rogers, Nick Hardy, Wesley Bryan, Scotty Scheffler, Mark Hubbard, Curtis Thompson, Kramer Hickok, Wyndham Clark, Cameron Percy, Matt Wallace, and Austin Smotherman. So you're starting to see a lot of the same names, especially with the short course metrics. Which is to be expected if guys are playing short courses well. They're generally, those are the types of courses that they prefer. Now, Scotty Scheffler just plays well wherever he's at. He's number 1 in the world. What is his short course at Amex? Okay. So that's the only tournament he's played this year where it's been short. I think that'll probably do it for this tab. Going to remove the short course filter. And let's go ahead and move into fairways and greens. And there's quite a few things we could look at here. Again, I don't think driving distance is going to matter. So let's just take a look at fairways. Your top fairways, or your top players at gaining fairways since the start of this calendar year, no filters, just straight up top fairways gained players. You have Brendan Todd, Ryan Armour, Brian Stewart, Martin Laird, Austin Cook, Jim Herman, Adam Long, David Lingworth, Vaughn Taylor, and Doug Gim. Let's see, none of these players are top half in the field in terms of distance. You have to come down here to 21st. Corey Connors, 21st in fairways, 48th in distance. That's top half. Chris Kirk, Emiliano Grillo. But again, I just don't see distance being a factor. You're going to have to hit the fairways, especially if the rough is as penal as I am, as I read and am made to believe. But let's really look at greens here. And we're going to look at both greens with no filters and greens on short courses. That reminds me, I've also looked at Wind Finder today. Maybe one day with a little bit of wind, but nothing to really focus on tonight. And we'll take a look at Wind Finder Wednesday at the DFS Tactics show if something indeed pops up, but nothing that says it needs to be factored in right now in the forecast. But greens and regulation, no filters, just your top greens and regulation players since the start of the calendar year. You've got Scotty Scheffler, Rory, Corey Connor, Shane Lowry, Tony Finau, JJ Spawn, Sebastian Munoz, Alex Smalley, Chris Kirk, and Patrick Rogers. Remember, Luke List and Taylor Pendrith have withdrawn. So, again, some more overlap here. I mean, your top tier players in the world. Alex Smalley, interesting. I think this might be the first time we've said him tonight. He has been traditionally very good at hitting greens in regulation, maybe not doing so much with them. You can see here the putting, absolutely leading credence to that. The irons have been pretty good, but the putting has been pretty woeful. Let's see. Somebody else that might be a tad bit surprising. Take a look at Patrick Rogers. He is generally a pretty good bent green putter as well. He did not putt well last week at the Memorial. He just didn't play well at the Memorial period. But the Charles Schwab, he played okay. Byron Nelson, he played okay. Patrick Rogers might be somebody to take a look at this week. Let's see, other bent green performances. Let's see, the Fortinet, gained 5.5. That was the first event of the PGA Tour season last fall. Did not make the playoffs, it looks like. Yeah, so generally pretty good bent green putter. Generally a good putter in general, as long as the irons are there, which the greens in regulation are there. Should give him some decent opportunities to score, you would think. So that's a look at the players with no filters that are great in greens and regulation. Now let's add the short course and the players that are really good at greens and regulation on short courses. Those players are Adam Hadwin, Rory, Adams Vincent, C.T. Pan, Harold Varner, Nick Taylor, Jared Wolfe, J.T. Poston, Shane Lowry, and Sean O'Hare. Let's see, Poston is interesting. I mentioned last night he seems to be a guy that kind of just pops up randomly. I can't really pinpoint him. You can see he generally plays best when it's easy. I believe his one win was at the Wyndham. For some reason I thought he had won the Amex, but he won the Wyndham, which is generally pretty darn easy, as you can see. Okay, but JT Poston, his approach has been okay. He's been very, very good with the putter lately. Gained almost 3 at the Memorial last week. Was essentially field average at the Charles Schwab. Gained a half at the Wells Fargo. Okay, so somebody else maybe to consider, especially with his propensity to play well when it's easy. JT Poston. Let's see. Sean O'Hare. Not excited about Sean O'Hare. Brandon Wu has played well for a couple of tournaments. He's coming off a Memorial that doesn't say he played well. He played really darn well. He lost everything on the green. 10 strokes on the green is really hard to do. You're almost trying to miss putts with that. But, solo second at the Mexico Open. I think it was a solo second. He had another top 5 in Puerto Rico. The guy has been playing some pretty good golf. Now he has some really, really bad tournaments in here, like the Memorial, like the Charles Schwab. So, I don't know. Brandon Wu's kind of interesting. Now his bent performance leaves a lot to be desired, sure. But he's played well when it's easy. Brandon Wu could be interesting. Let's see. Those are your top greens. We looked at fairways. Let's take a look at scrambling. And again, I'm not going to add... actually, you know what? Let's look at sand saves. Again, no difficulty filter, just with the bunkerage that's around the greens here at St. George's. I think sand saves might be something to consider. So your top sand saves players since the start of this calendar year. You got Patrick Reed, Wesley Bryan, Rasmus Højgaard, Matt Fitzpatrick, Shane Lowry, JT, Adam Hadwin, Rory, Chris Kirk, and Ryan Armour. And while I'm thinking about it, let me pull up some information here. And this is from PGAtour.com. It was an article by Adam Stanley. The 5 things you need to know about St. George's Golf and Country Club. So the first thing it says here is new greens and new bunkers. Let's see. The bunkers were all redone. And the redesign guy also tinkered with a few specific areas. The front left bunker on 14, the bunker on 13. Let's see. Each bunker, no, I'm sorry, I said that. Each of the greens, which are now bent, were redesigned in 2014. I mentioned that. Here we go. Preparing for the U.S. Open. It says, with the Canadian Open now sitting a week prior to the U.S. Open, expect some of the conditioning to reflect Brookline, which is where the U.S. Open is next week. The greens will run about 12.5 on the stimp. We saw the GCSAA listed it at 12, so pretty consistent. And the putting surfaces now have 5 areas for hole locations. That leads credence to the slopiness, the undulations that I had seen in other articles and had read yesterday for the initial research show. The green speeds in 2010 were a little slower because the greens had too much slope before the changes. Things will be much faster this time around, and the rough is set to be thick and penal. Again, this is straight from an article. I can't, I'm not on the course Can't confirm that, but going by this article here, the thing that leads credence that I think is going to be easier than some of the pundits or experts say it's going to be this week, the leaderboard, and I'll bring this up, the 2010, I said 2010, the 2010 leaderboard for you right here. Carl Peterson was your winner at minus 14. Look at his Saturday. He had a 60. As you see, he just went ungodly low. The course record, which stood for decades, was broken by Peterson. He shot a third round 60 and narrowly missed a putt for 59. Let's see. Then Rory fired a tidy 61 in his final round at Hamilton, and he was threatening 59 all day. Hamilton, Glen Abbey always played easy. I just don't see this being all that difficult. I really, really don't. But here is a look at the players and the top players on that leaderboard from 2010. You see Matt Kuchar, Charlie Hoffman. These guys aren't bombers. Luke Donald, Kevin Na. These guys aren't bombers. They are precision, iron players, good short game, good putting. So leads me to believe that maybe sand saves if a player is out of position, especially with the renovation of the course, the redo of the bunkers. So let's take a look at sand saves. No other filter applied, just pure sand saves. We just looked at that. I realized because I saw Patrick Reed. Again, some more overlap here. Matt Fitzpatrick, Shane Lowry, Rory, Adam Hadwin's now starting to pop a little bit. Always been pretty darn good at the fairways, hitting greens. Rafa Cabrera Bello, just outside the top 10. Interesting. Scotty Scheffler, there's Charlie Hoffman, Harold Varner. Harold Varner's been up there at or near the top 10 in almost all of these metrics so far this week. But I think that's going to probably do it for this tab. I'm going to be focusing a lot on greens. I might put some sand saves in there, probably 5%, kind of on the fence about fairways. So let's look at proximity. And again, I am still pretty darn confident that total proximity is not going to matter. What I really want to look at is 175 to 200. If indeed that is the most important range of approach shots here at St. George's, and I'm only taking that by this chart here. Now 23% from 175 to 200, 23% from 200 plus, so the same identical. It's just that 175 to 200 is a lot more than the average tour event. That's why the emphasis, I believe, would be on 175 to 200. So your top players from 175 to 200 yards since the start of this calendar year. Those players are Luke Donald, Vaughn Taylor, Justin Thomas, Satoshi Kodaira, Mark Hubbard, Adam Svensson, Sebastian Munoz, Charlie Hoffman, Jared Wolfe, and Austin Smotherman, and Shane Lowry. So, again, a lot of overlap here. Tony Finau. There's Doug Gim, we've talked about a couple times. There's Patrick Reed. Brandon Wu here, just right at 20th. Luke Donald, we've said a lot of things with approach. Luke Donald's been pretty darn good at. 2 weeks ago, I was really happy with the call with him on playing him as a 6,000 play. Went back to him this past week at the Memorial. Didn't work out quite as well. But you see the irons here. A lot of it being predicated on the Wells Fargo, sure. But he has some ice cold weeks and he has some fire weeks. 4, a little over 6, 7.5, almost 3. So the irons are good. They've traditionally been good. The putter is even keeled, more so. Like last week was really good at the Memorial. He's generally been, anywhere in the 1 to -1 range. So consistently right around tour average. Off the tee is atrocious for Luke Donald. But again, I don't know how much that's going to play effect this week. So I'm not going to advocate that we have another 6,000 run it back for a third time Luke Donald week. But man, if this is all iron play, it'd be hard to pass up Luke Donald if he's pretty cheap. Let's see. Okay. I don't think we want to do proximity when it's short, because proximities are proximities, whether the course is long, short, or whatnot. So if I do come into here and put proximity in the final mixed condition model, it's probably going to be 5% in here, just because that's the majority of approach shots here at St. George's, but I don't feel great about it. I don't know. We looked at this last night, but let's rehash. Par threes. All 5 par threes are in the range of 200 to 225. You've got a 213. Okay. Apologies. You got a 146 here. I did not have that last night. So you've got a 213, a 223, a 213, and a 203, and then one extremely short one. Okay. So with that, still 4 of the 5 are from 200 to 225. So we're going to focus all of our attention on par threes to this length. So again, no filters. Your top performers on par threes from 200 to 225 since the start of this calendar year. You got Vaughn Taylor, Brian Stewart, C.T. Pan, Stefan Jaeger, Brendan Todd, Andrew Novak, Corey Connors, Matt Fitzpatrick, Rasmus Højgaard, and Patrick Reed. Okay. So trying to think, because Vaughn Taylor has been up there on a filter or two. C.T. Pan's been up there a couple times. Jaeger, what was his? He was something with short courses, I think. Was it Eagles on short courses, maybe? He was up there on one other thing. Brendan Todd is all fairways. Let's see. He's actually very good at par threes in general and at this length. Let's see. Højgaard, Fitzpatrick. So if you want to look at strokes gained par 3 in totality and at the range, so Vaughn Taylor, 9th in total par 3s, 1st at the length. You got Brian Stewart, 2nd and 2nd. C.T. Pan, 3rd and 3rd. Jaeger, 8th and 3rd. Brendan Todd, 6th and 6th. Fitzpatrick, 6th and 9th. I'll give an honorable mention here to Adam Hadwin, 4th and 14th. So there's a look at the par 3s. Let's take a look at par 4s. We have quite a few long par 4s here at St. George's. So you got a 370, but you have a 478, a 471, a 486, a 480. So there's 5 from the 450 to 500 category already. Then you have a 451, which will play probably in both. You have a 459, which will probably play in both. 474. So, I think it's safe to say 450 to 500. So your top performers on par 4s from 450 to 500 since the start of the calendar year. You've got Shane Lowry, Sebastian Munoz, Rory, JT, Ryan Armour, Rory Sabatini. So I said Rory earlier, so Rory McIlroy and Rory Sabatini. Scotty Scheffler 7th, Aaron Rai 8th, Tony Finau 9th, Tyler Duncan 10th. Look at that, CT Pan 11th. So he's good at the par 4s and the par 3s. If you want to look at par 4s in totality and at the length of par 4s here at St. George's, Shane Lowry 2nd and 1st, Sebastian Munoz 7th and 2nd, Rory McIlroy 4th and 3rd, Justin Thomas 3rd and 4th, Scotty Scheffler 1st and 7th. A couple honorable mentions, I guess. Corey Connors 9th and 15th, Matt Fitzpatrick 5th and 16th, Chris Kirk 7th and 19th. Okay. But I think it's going to be 450 to 500, again, just based on, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are comfortably in the 450 to 500, and then you have a 459 which will play there, a 451 which will play there occasionally as well. So as many as 7 par 4s will play at this length here at St. George's this week. And then lastly, we covered this as well last night, but strokes gained par 5, and I just think I'm going to be looking at just flat out strokes gained par 5, 538, 528, and then the 570, which is pretty much a true 3-shotter. Now, the 2 shorter ones are where you get your eagles, so it might be worth looking. I mean, we'll look at both of them. I'm trying to decide if I might split out the short par 5s in the data model. Not quite sure yet. Be interested to hear your take. Put it in the comments. But with total par 5s, your top performers: Keith Mitchell, Cameron Smith, Scotty Scheffler, Cameron Percy, Matthias Schwab, Matt Fitzpatrick, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, Sam Burns, and Johnny Vegas. Now, if we're looking at the 550 to 500, 500 to 550, if I am not dyslexic. If you're looking at both totality and 500 to 550, you've got Keith Mitchell, 1st and 5th, and he's also 4th in the longer one too. Cameron Smith, 2nd and 1st. Cameron Percy, 4th and 3rd. Matthias Schwab, 5th and 2nd. Rory McIlroy, 8th and 5th. You got honorable mention here, David Lipsky, 12th and 5th. Okay. Again, I don't know how much I'm going to split out this par 5 length. I can see an argument for it. I can see an argument against it. Because if I'm going to look at eagles, you would think eagles would factor in these 2 holes, because I don't believe there are a lot of great eagle chances. No, just the first, and it's a decent chance for a par 4, mind you, but really, if I want to look at eagles, that's going to encapsulate the 2 par 5s here. So perhaps it is more wise to look at the 500 to 550 par 5s as opposed to the eagles. Again, be interested to hear your take. But that is what I have for you all for the Data Dive show. Again, a little bit shorter than normal, but a lot more information. The GCSIA tournament fact sheet came out. We were able to more scrutinize the statistics that we wanted to look at. Do you think the bent greens, do you think I should have fast or lightning if they're really going to try to make it like the US Open? Do you think the course is going to play difficult and I should look at that? I'm still leaning on the easy side, but I am much more convinced that it's going to play average as opposed to easy after reading what I have today. But yeah, put it in the comments what you think for your headlines or your narratives this week. Who are the players that you think are just tuning up for the US Open? Who do you think is actually going to come out here and really give it a go? All that good stuff. Who are you looking for in DFS? Pivots and fades. What wagers have you made? Put all that in the comments. I'd be interested to hear from you all. So thanks again for tuning in, listening, and watching. I always appreciate the support for all the wagers you've made so far this week at the RBC Canadian. For any of the wagers you're thinking about making this week at the RBC Canadian. And until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.